everybody. I know we're running late, so I'll try and keep it brief. My name's Luca Greenough. I'm one of the operational forecasters at the UK Met Office Space Weather Operations Centre, MOSWOC. So yeah, let's run through some headlines of today's forecast and then through the next few days. So yeah, there's a little bit going on actually. Moderate low solar activity at the moment, but we do have 12 sunspots on the disk. Yeah, we've got isolated chance, well, a likely chance of further isolated M-class flares and a slight chance of isolated X-class flares given some of the complexity that we're seeing. Solar radiation and storm risk nominal for now, but that is due to steady increase as we'll see the sunspots rotate across. And yeah, solar wind conditions at the moment fairly reducing to background, but we do have a fairly complex CME picture at the moment, so impacts are possible as we go into the weekend potentially, but still a lot to play for with that. So just throwing up the latest synoptic picture prepared by my colleague last night operationally, and just a little blow up of some of the magnetic structure of the main interest points there. So yeah, 3492, 90, and the sort of recently numbered 3500, all of interest. Hints of delta spot configurations within those, and that's where we're seeing the bulk of the activity. Near center disk, you can obviously see the corona hole that's now passing the meridian. That's going to give us our next kind of reoccurrent solar feature. So just a quick loop of the X-ray flares there. This is obviously not updated to the precise current time, but you can see the main areas reasonably well highlighted, as well as an area kind of rotating on from that northeastern limb, as you can see just behind it, where we've seen a fair amount of activity in recent times. So it'll be interesting to see what comes around there. So in terms of our forecast for radio blackouts, X-ray flares as it were, yeah, you can see the trace along the top. So we're solidly up in the C class, and we had isolated, just peaking into M-class activity in recent times. So forecast-wise, yeah, we're on our 60% risk of M-class, basically throughout the period. Looking at the solar difference imagery, the main spots look to be reasonably stable, already stabilizing, but obviously we're expecting new spots to rotate onwards, and yeah, no significant areas to leave the disk during the period. Our flare risk pretty similar to Space Weather Prediction Center, but you can see somewhat reduced from the semi-automated CCMC average. So just quickly on solar radiation storms, yeah, given the classification of the spots on disk, we are running a slightly elevated risk at the moment, and that risk just increases a touch as we go through the latter half of the period, and they rotate into a slightly more effective position on the Parker spiral. So just quickly on the current solar winds, you can see it's a fairly flat trace as we transition out of that corona hole that we saw in recent days back to background conditions. But moving on to the CME picture, we've got a little loop running here in recent days, and as we've gone through the conference, the sun's become increasingly active in terms of throwing out CMEs, and particularly as we go into the 22nd, you'll see two features. The first there, down to the southwest, and then a broader area there along the south, and those are the two main areas that we're looking at the moment as potentially giving us a risk of some Earth-directed activity. So this was the filament liftoff that we saw early on the 22nd AM. This was the one also discussed yesterday. This was reanalyzed and thought now to give us the potential of a glancing blow as we go into sort of early part of the weekend, though obviously very tricky in terms of these precise analysis nowadays, given the lack of imagery we have on occasion. This 22nd of PM feature that came off to the south is potentially more interesting. This was a quite strange feature that came off quite a broad area of dimming in the southern solar hemisphere. Little to attribute it to on the visible disk in terms of imagery, so there are a lot of question marks around it, to be honest, but at the moment you can see ourselves at the UK Met Office and the M2M office are diagnosing that as potentially front-sided with a risk of impact. So looking at our NLIL forecast, you can see it's a very complicated forecast with the amount of CMEs that are firing off. But yeah, we have two potential impacts into the 25th and then into the 26th, as well as an arrival of that corona hole. So looking a little bit more detail into that in terms of the NLIL ensemble, you can see the main features highlighted with the initial bump into the 25th, associated with the glancing blow, and then the further bump into the 26th. This all within a general increase, most likely associated with the corona hole, though this assessed by the forecasters as perhaps a little bit too early in terms of bringing in those higher conditions. But either way, a lot of uncertainty, but certainly potential for some impacts as we go into the weekend. So in terms of our geomagnetic forecast we've got at the moment, we're currently looking at a 50% risk of G1, G2 minor to moderate storms through day 2, Saturday and into Sunday, with a 5% risk of G3 at the moment. So yeah, just to finish, I'll just throw up some aurora forecasts for any of yourselves that are off to the high latitudes over the weekend. I say, yeah, there is a potential for some displays. So yeah, that's all I've got. Hopefully I kept it brief enough. Yeah, any questions, feel free to get in touch. Thank you.